Friends, welcome into Soccer Tejas. I'm Alex Parra. It's always a pleasure to have you follow us. Today, you see him on screen with a very special guest, President of Soccer for the Houston Dynamo, Mr. Pat Onstad. First of all, Pat, good day. Happy summer, I guess. It's kind of hot. How are you, Pat?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm enjoying the heat. That usually means better results for us at home, so we're excited about it. It's
Well,
good.
Pat, thank you for joining us. And today is many things to talk about, including how the main team is doing. This November, by my count, will be 4 years since you've joined in your initial general manager GM position. I guess there's
Correct.
been a transition to now president of soccer, but almost 4 years into this, Pat, how are you feeling about your role and the impact your team and the organization is making in our city?
Yeah, I think there's some real positives, and then some other areas that we need to keep improving, and I think that are developing, pointing in the right direction. Certainly from the first team standpoint, we probably jumped ahead a little bit, winning an Open Cup in 23 and making a Final Four, and then last year setting a club record for points. This year's been a bit disappointing so far. But we also achieved something that we hadn't done before and sold over $8 million and with two players,
Right.
which was unheard of in the club's history. So you kind of balance the two out. It's going to affect you a little bit on the field, and hopefully we can fight back and get there. So I think from the first team standpoint, we're really happy with the way the project's going. Yes, we'd like a little more this year, but we still feel we're in a position where we can do something special this year. And then I think from the development is starting this new second team, this MLS Next Pro team, that feeds off and is a really nice kind of bridge into the first team from our academy. And I think, hopefully we'll get more into both those kind of topics, I think, on this call, in this interview.
Pat, when we spoke, and along with Asher, by the way, probably a few years ago, we talked about the legacy of youth soccer in the city, what the organization prior to Mr. Ted Segal were doing relative to youth soccer. There was a Dynamo Youth Club that made things for many, and this is my assessment of it, kind of nebulous. Were they competing against the local clubs? What was the strategy? There was a clear parting from that past to a new approach to involvement with the youth community. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's absolutely fair, and I would 100% agree with you. If I was, if I was playing for Albion, for example, and I had a club and we were playing the Dynamo Youth, I would take that as saying, listen, we're playing the professional club, whether it's U12 or U18. That's how I would see the game as well. And I can only talk from our experience. Asher Mendelson and I both worked together with the Columbus Crew, and we first got to Columbus in 2014. They had the same issue. They were running a Cruise Junior program that was competing with every local club in the city. And with that, why would another local club work with us? So instantly they came in and said, that's it, out. And certainly was one of the first things when we got here that Ash and I both said, we need to dissolve this. And not to say that it wasn't at the time when it first came in. I'm not going to be a judge on that. That was years before I got here. But I know for us to move forward, and actually, in fairness to all the other clubs in the area, I understand where they were coming from. And I actually think since we've done that, the amount of cooperation we've had now is tenfold in comparison to what it was in the first year when I was here.
That said, there's still been time to heal some wounds. Maybe I'll phrase it that way, Pat.
Yeah.
Things have improved, but you've seen that this takes time for people to maybe believe and trust again in the organization.
Yeah, I think so. And I would, if I was, I always try to put myself in someone else's shoes. And I think if I was on the other side, I would say, okay, I hear you, but let's see how this goes. And say, okay, your actions will probably speak louder than words. So I hope we're doing the right thing. I believe with Tony Vigil's leadership in the academy, I think he's been pretty transparent with these clubs in terms of, for us, we're not we want to try to attract the best players in the city, and hopefully at one day they get an opportunity to play for our first team. That's the goal. But at the same token, like, we can't get to this position without the cooperation of Rise, TFC, now GFI, Rangers, Aspire, Albion, Houston Express, all these guys who have produced players that are now playing in our academy. And I'm missing some. So please, if someone is there and they feel like I apologize. That's not where I'm trying to go. But that's the only way for us to move forward is, and I don't mean us when I say the Dynamo, I mean us as a soccer community within Houston, for us to move forward. And eventually what we're hoping for, no matter which youth organization it is, that we can all celebrate when we have a player and go playing for the first team and go, that's our guy.
Sure.
And I say our guy, our city, representing Houston, and say, that's the player that's making a difference on the first team.
And friends, for full disclosure, one club you did mention is SG1. I'm the director.
Thank you.
And
yes,
founder.
I apologize. Yes.
No.
Alex, I did that intentionally, though. Intentionally.
That wasn't meant.
It's a selfless plug if I throw you under that.
But for those of you that are following us, and for full disclosure, again, I'm the founder and director of SG1 Soccer Club, mainly out of Katy, and we're involved and have been involved in a lot of this. So again, for full disclosure, for those that are following us, Pat, talk to us about the current structure. So there was a move away from the Dynamo Youth Club. That, in a way, was cleaned up, if you will. That club transitioned to HTX now. Randy Evans, great guy. And I think his leadership has helped a lot in that transition as well. But what is the current structure? So for most of us, it's the first team, it's the second team, and then it's the academy system. That's still the structure that the Dynamo follows?
And I think the bigger one is we're out of the pay-to-play model. We have 4 academy teams: U14, U15, U16, and U18. We dabble in. We don't have an organization in terms of a U13 or U12 program, but we dabble in once in a while. Have periodically bring kids in for I guess you call them training camps, or just to try to keep our eye on the talent at that age group. But we only run 4 teams. They're all free for anybody that's in it. The parents don't pay anything. It's fully funded from our club. And then the idea is to push from there, that we essentially fill our second team, which is we call them Dynamo 2, and hopefully from there they can make one more jump into the first team. But that's so we have 7 teams essentially: Dynamo 2, 4 academy teams, 6 teams. Sorry, can't even count yet, and then the first team.
Now, the landscape, and this is my take on it, Pat, being around youth soccer since I was a youth player, believe it or not, mid to late 80s, coaching, admin from different lenses, I'll put it that way, is that now the business, and I'm using that term intentionally, has changed. There's different brands competing for the business, for which one is better, which one is best, how do I get here? There's a lot of talk of pathway, there's a lot of talk of development, and there's a lot of reality, which is, Pat, what you did in your career as a player is the 1%. Most of us will never get to that point. I think these are truths. Stats back that statement up. Is the marketplace so congested and confusing that maybe you're not, on the Dynamo side, academy side, getting the best players because they don't know that that's the top tier? Is that a fair question?
I couldn't answer. I would really, because I don't know if they're not here. I don't know if they're the top players.
Sure.
We like to think we have Pablo Reyes is our kind of chief scout of the academy, and I think has done a pretty good job of reaching out with olive branches now to the clubs. It's a much easier, it's a less hostile soccer environment than it was previously. But I would say for us, the message we have is we play an MLS Next, which we think is the top academy program in the league. I'm sure other leagues would argue that. But what you've seen is that MLS Next is producing the most players, certainly that go to MLS, producing the most players that maybe go abroad from that league. So we do think it's the highest league, and our kids that are playing here are then competing, therefore, in the highest level, which I think challenges these kids and to see if they can make it. Alex, and I don't want to ramble on, so please interrupt me, because you know me, I'll talk forever. But I also think like our responsibility here is to try to produce players professionally, but ultimately we have a responsibility. And it's funny, I spoke with a family yesterday. We have a responsibility to these kids, and to be honest to them, and to say, instead of them saying, "Hey, let's sign a MLS Next Pro deal," just because I think there's a 1 in a million chance you might make it, when they've got a college scholarship on the table. I actually have a moral dilemma. I'm probably in the position I'm in compared to a lot of chief soccer officers in the league. I really value education. These are huge opportunities because, as you mentioned, at 1% at best are going to be able to go on and make a career of this game. It's very difficult to do that. And some of these kids have to make tough decisions. But I'm a big believer that the college system still has a role to play. And if someone's not guaranteed or there's not a really clear pathway to make it as a pro, but we can provide them to get them into a good college program and they get a degree, it sets them up for life. I think that's a big responsibility that kind of certainly weighs on me personally, but also on our club. I think it's an important pathway for us.
Pat, there are many families, many players who believe they are ready for the next step.
Yep.
How do people break through to actually get in front of the experts, the decision makers, to say, look, my son is ready? What is the process of that? Whether they're playing for X or Y club, whether they're at this level or that level, players can be found everywhere. There is not one pathway, maybe is what I'm trying to say, but you do have to get in front of someone that can make those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, Pablo Reyes, he holds different venues. He'll show some ID camps, but we are missing people without a doubt. There's no way that we can say that we're seeing every single player in this city. There's 7.5 million people in Houston. We're not getting there, and I think the hardest part for us is to find the kids that maybe not so much in the organized clubs.
Right.
Those are the kids that we usually can get our eyes on and get a good feel. And if we have a good relationship with these clubs, we're actually, a lot of times those clubs are saying, hey, take a look at these 3 kids. We think they're at that level. And it's very easy for us to get a scout to go to the game or to invite him in for a week for training. But it's the kids that were, the inner city kids, or a kid that can't afford to pay to play soccer that is playing in a local league in the city. Those are the ones that are difficult for us. And I would have to be, I'd be lying on this broadcast if I said, oh, we're able to find those kids. We're not. And it's not a perfect science in how to find those kids.
Right.
And I think we touched a little bit before this on the call is hoping, I think, over this period here where we're going to be hyper focused on soccer over the next 12 months before the World Cup gets here, that we can find more and more opportunities for these kids to get in front of, and maybe it's not us, maybe it's another youth club that goes, okay, maybe we don't think he's for us, but this kid could be perfect at and I'll use Rangers as an example. Another MLS Next group says, we'll scholarship this kid. We believe in this kid. This is great. But the more opportunities we can give for these, for everybody in this city, that's when I think, and when I say again about is Houston is a soccer city, is we can really start producing players.
Pat, I'm sure you've been told and asked the next question in different ways, which is, okay, you're the pro team. You're taking my player that I created, that I built, that I improved, and you're not going to give me anything in return. This, again, I go back to that word, and I'm not trying to be too cynical, but literally we are having now 7, 8, and 9-year-olds that have social media channels. They're already trying to get recruited. I think you and I know this. And they're probably already pitching you. But then there are clubs that say, no, this is my player. I developed this player. If I identify him, you guys are going to take him from me. You're going to make money. And what are you leaving me? I'm sure you've heard that. And what's your response to that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair comment. I mean, it's certainly something we need to get organized. There's one thing where MLS will say, well, if you're in the MLS Next network, there's certain payment schedules that we'll go through. We've tried to meet with some of the clubs, your club included, again, full transparency here, but with some other clubs to try to find these solutions to this. We are not against supporting a club, like giving them actual cash or saying, hey, let's do a scholarship together. What we do want to do is make sure is that we're giving credit 100% that these other clubs are doing the hard work to develop these players to a certain level. And then also saying, hey, I want to support the player because I believe in the Houston Dynamo can give them the best pro pathway. This is not something where we want to go. We won't want to be seen as stealing players. We want to be seen as working together to try to get the best players to the highest level they can get to. And as I mentioned before, maybe it isn't with us. For example, maybe we say, we've got a good example would be, hey, we have 4 right backs that we love in our system. Well, that makes no sense for us to go grab a 5th that's going to be fighting with those in here when it may be better for them to play in another club and they can get more exposure and an opportunity to grow there. So I think we do need to work together and just be honest, open and honest with one another. But whatever works, we're open to these conversations.
Pat, that's kind of present. We talked about the
Yeah.
past, the breaking away. What's next in this? I'm going to call it complicated youth market system, ecosystem. There's different ways, but what do you see next? And you've been very calculated, and I'm going to say this not just because you're on. You've been very correct, very open, transparent about the club's intentions, and you've backed that up over years now.
Well, I hope so, but I don't have any answers. I'm not here saying I have an answer, and the last thing I want to do is say, no, this is it. We're the experts, and we're going to jam it down your throat, and whether you like it or not. I don't think that works in a perfect world. And there'll be some clubs will say, you know what, I don't want to work with you. Period. Doesn't matter what you say, what you do. I don't care about your actions. No problem, no problem. That's your prerogative. That's your choice. But we're open to certainly suggestions and ways to do this. I know some of the conversations we've had when we have got some of these groups together, I think have been very helpful. Certainly for me personally, but also for the club to understand. And it's good to get the history to understand. Okay, this is where teams are coming from. I can understand, but ultimately for us, our goal is to try to find the best players in Houston. And I still, as I mentioned before, it's going to take time for us to be able to get these guys to go and now make a difference with our first team. And I'll use Columbus again. That's my personal experience and Asher's personal experience. It took somewhere between 7 and 8 years from when they came over in 2014 till they started producing the Sean Sawatskis, recruiting an Aiden Morris from Florida to come in. These guys that are now, U.S. national team players. Out of that academy, and they produced quite a few in Columbus, Ohio, of a city of roughly 2 million people. So it's something I know we can do here, but we do need to work together. We need everyone's help.
Are we getting closer to working together? And I can give you my opinion.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. And look, you mentioned Columbus. There's other cities that are literally working together. And one player's success is everyone's success. I'll be honest with you before you answer, Pat. I don't believe that's the case today in Houston. My experience tells me it's a very fragmented, Wild West type approach to youth soccer. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah,
and
we're in Texas, so.
And everyone has their own priority and their own way. Whether it's what you show on the field, whether it's your approach, play to play, not pay to play, giving it away, whether you're public parks or private facilities. I hope we can come closer together, and maybe the World Cup might be that impetus that we all need. But are we getting closer? Is it getting better?
I think it's. I mean, considering when I was here, almost as you mentioned, almost 4 years ago, absolutely, it's getting better. I mean, but the big step was getting out of the youth game, and we're not competing with youth clubs for recreational players is the best thing to say.
Yeah.
But I still feel like we have a long way to go. And part of that is, can we be more aggressive in terms of trying to get everyone together and take more ideas on? I think yes. We're moving a little slower than I'd probably like to and try to find how we're going to work together and what makes sense for everybody. But also, to your point, it has been fragmented. And everybody has their own agendas. One club says, listen, I need help getting my mom and pop organization up and getting their certified, my coaches. Mm-hmm. Another club says, I just need cash because you're taking my best players. Yeah. And I need that. I want some notoriety and I want to be his name put up in the spotlight. So everybody has different agendas. So the question is, how do we come together and find, and it doesn't mean that. So it's certainly what I've learned is, there's not one answer that's going to solve everything. There's probably 20 to 30 different ways to go about this. And unfortunately, that does take a little bit of time. But, when I'm saying I wish it would be a little faster, that's on us. That's not on other people. I think we could be meeting a little more frequently, try to get some more ideas and try to implement some and see where they go. And if they fail, no problem. Well, then we go back to the drawing board, but at least show that we're making a concerted effort to try to move this thing forward.
Pat, maybe an intrusive question. Does Mr. Ted Segal when you talk to him about the youth side? Is he conscious of this? Obviously, he's supporting this, and I believe that. And maybe you're going to tell me you need to ask him, and I will next time I see him.
No, I mean, he's aware. I certainly update him of what's going on when we have these meetings and we get together as groups. He's aware of that too. Jessica O'Neill, our president of the club, she updates him on that too and our progress. So he's aware. He was very supportive of us getting away out of the Dynamo Dash Youth. He didn't quite understand it at the beginning, and it took a little time to convince him otherwise. But he's definitely seen the benefits from that. I think on not just the youth landscape, but also just in the community in terms of the positivity towards the team is much better than it was 3-4 years ago, where people are like, well, why should I support this team? We beat you 6-0 on the weekend anyway. And so those moments now are kind of behind us. And I think from Ted's perspective, he's appreciative of that, and he's appreciative of he knows if we're going to be successful as a club, forget the academy side of it and the youth pathway, we need the support of all the soccer clubs in the city.
The World Cup's coming up in less than a year. Obviously, Houston will be hosting several matches. Is that a time maybe to focus on how can we better come together? Number one, Pat, and then beyond that, as you may be aware, Pat and friends that are following us, what is the legacy of the World Cup in Houston? There are already moves, and I've talked to several county commissioners, Harris County commissioners, about the legacy, about building fields, about giving more access to players that can't pay, that can't afford it. Mr. Chris Kennedy with the organizing committee talked about that just a few weeks back. Is this maybe a move that can bring us together? I go back to that. I don't see how anyone could not support this, Pat, or maybe am I cuckoo?
No, I don't think you're cuckoo. But I certainly think, when Chris talks about the legacy that FIFA wants to leave behind, I think is fantastic. I think more fields, more opportunity for kids to play. And you touched on, you may know more about it than I do, but places for kids to play where they don't have to pay. And still getting exposure, still getting an opportunity to show what they can do, I think would be an amazing legacy to leave behind after this World Cup. It's tough, I think, for the city can wrap their heads around and say, okay, we got a Super Bowl. I got it. We've hosted that before. But the fact that we're going to have 7 Super Bowls in about a 37-day period is, I don't think anyone's quite wrapped their head around what we're about to experience. So just get ready for traffic jams like you've never seen before. But it's exciting. It's exciting that our sport, and Alex, you've been a supporter of this sport for a long time, been involved. I've been involved in it since I was 6 years old, over 50 years now. I love this game. I think it's the passion that you'll see then this is, if we're ever going to take a step forward, and I do believe we are a soccer city. I'm not saying, but as a club, and I'll go back to the club, this is the moment for the Dynamo to try to turn all these passionate soccer fans into Dynamo fans as well. It's going to be a huge opportunity for us, and I really hope that we take advantage of it.
Pat, one of the things that I've seen is the community outreach more with players from the organization. Do you consciously talk about that? I know in the past there's been question marks about, well, look, and I'm going to mention a name, Hector Herrera, he's here, he's a Mexican national team player. But you know what? I never saw him out in the community. Where was he? And you don't have to comment on that. But my point is, maybe I am seeing more players being involved in camps and clinics, making appearances, and that changes a young player's life.
It's certainly something that I'm a huge advocate for that. I believe we're very fortunate in terms of what we do for a living, but we're still a sport that is, we have 3 other major sports teams in the city. We want to have more relevance. And the best way to do that is to have interactions that people can actually sit there and go, oh, I met that guy. That was amazing. What a great experience. And then, hey, let's go check the game out, bring some friends and family. These are moments, and I know from my career when I played here for 5 years, we used to have a place, Autograph Alley, and I would sign after. And it was, generally speaking, a lot of the same people, but each time you'd see, hey, I brought 3 friends that had never seen a soccer game before. Hey, can they get your autograph? And those moments for a player and the connection that you have, like those are the same. I still see some of those people at our stadium, and they still support our club. And I do think that personal interaction makes lifelong fans out of these people. And I think it's really important that we get out there in the community. It's good to hear that you're saying there's more people coming out and we're out in the community a little more. I'd like us to see even more. I'd like it to be the point where I got players knocking on my door saying, "Hey, come on, like this is too many appearances." I think it's really important. We have a lot of guys here that love that. Whether you like it or not, it does boost your ego, and it's nice. It's fun to interact with fans, and people get to meet these guys. They're human beings just like you and I. They're fortunate. They're really good at a professional sport. They're really good at a certain skill, and but they're great people to meet too, and they're good ambassadors for our sport.
Pat, look, we really appreciate your time, but I'd like you, if you could, maybe a message to soccer parents. I don't want to lead you in what you're saying or not going to say, but not hear from Alex Parra, not hearing it from other commentators, not hearing it from the local club coach or director, but you've lived it. You've played at the highest levels, national team. I'm sorry about Canada, by the way, in Gold Cup.
Yeah, I know. That's a different topic.
Different topic for a different day.
Whatever,
you've seen it, you've done it all, and now you're in a position where you see the youth side. There are many families, literally, Pat, that are spending thousands of dollars a year. They're traveling, chasing the dream. What do you want to say? And I'm literally going to go to a one shot. What do you say to soccer families in Houston that are aware of the Dynamo, aware of the Dash, and their kids, boys or girls, have dreams of what's next? What do you say to them?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's difficult. It's a difficult to make that big step and to become a professional soccer player. I do believe it is like Malcolm Gladwell, where he says the 10,000 hours. I think the experience of getting out there, but I was fortunate. I made it, but I made it because I love the game. I enjoyed it, and every chance I had. If I wasn't playing street hockey because I was Canadian, of course, but I think back on my experiences is that I played a ton of soccer. I was smashing a ball against a wall, getting it back every day if they couldn't find somebody to play with. So it's really important. I don't want to get into the pay to play and all that stuff, but what I would say is the kids that make it aren't necessarily the kids that are going and paying to play and going 3 days a week and getting great coaching. You need more than just the 3 days. The other 2 days a week where before the game, hopefully you're out in your backyard doing something or out with your friends. And that's something if there's something we're lacking, I think, in just not just our country like the US, but also in Canada as well, is these special players that have this flair to be able to break games down. And I think you learn that on your own. You learn that with your friends playing 5-on-5 in the street. You learn that playing at the park. You don't go that from a coach that's giving you structure and ways to play, which is really important in your development. But it's a tough road, but it's also if the kids are having fun, then you're doing the right thing.
Fun.
I don't know if that helped. I don't know if that helped or if that's where you wanted me to go.
No, you ended.
I don't want. I think it's the part of the journey, and whether you make it or not, that's the enjoyable part of this. And I think from a parent's standpoint, embrace all of it. It is something that everyone grows up. Everyone turns to a guy who's got gray hairs and is 57 years old, and I'm not. I'm not
right
a pro
there with
soccer
you, sir.
player anymore. It's over. It's long gone, way back in the rearview mirror. But I enjoyed it. I know my parents enjoyed watching me play when I was a 11-year-old in pouring rain in Vancouver, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's got to be fun for everyone.
Pat, but you've lived it, and I think we're blessed at our age to be able to pass that down, kind of put our ego aside. And now I live through others' experiences, my children's experiences. Yeah. I see it through their eyes. But I do see this, Pat Onstad, that you're still passionate about this game. And if you can do that at our age, think of what that can do for the next generation. So I think that's solid advice, and I hope all of you friends that are watching can take it from one of the best who's lived it. Maybe the last thing to close with, Pat, what's upcoming short term on the youth side? Any more changes? And also, how can people get a hold of you and the organization? What is the best? And we need to keep talking about these topics. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but how can people find out more about maybe making their dreams a reality one day?
Yeah, we have Pablo Reyes. So there's actually a scouting link, I believe, on that you can email to. My email's pretty easy. It's my first initial last name out of HoustonDynamo.com, and I get lots of emails, that's for sure. But there's ways to reach out. I think for us, what's happening actually, one thing we didn't touch on is we've been, and I want to brag about this because I do think we're progressing. And while we haven't had guys break through, the last 2 years, including this season, we've had the most academy players and the most academy minutes of our second team of anyone in the country by a long shot. Yet we've still been competitive. That may be one thing to say and say, oh, we're 0-22. No, we're still been in a playoff spot since day one. We made the playoffs last year, and we were able to play these young guys, and we're exposing them. And over time, we believe that eventually this will give these academy players an opportunity to jump up. Having said that, because we keep moving players up, we play younger and younger players at the different age groups. So when we're playing a U14 team, we've got 12-year-olds that are playing in that. And we were fortunate enough this year, we were very successful. Our U14 team made it to the MLS Next final, lost on penalty kicks. I think we were in the quarterfinals of the U15, and I think there was the U18 we made to the round of 16. So with younger age groups competing at that level. So really happy with where the youth program is going and moving, but we still have a lot of work to do, and we're excited. I think once we can start getting these guys breaking through, then I think the whole city can celebrate that.
Pat, we can't thank you enough for your time. You have been very transparent in talking about these issues, and I think we're headed in a better direction. I'm optimistic, honestly, about where we can go. And maybe the final word is I believe that the Dynamo Dash organization should be leaders in this, and we need to have that approach, that opening as far as clubs go, as far as even high school, and we'll have further conversations about that that partnership. But I sense and I hear that the organization is being flexible, is being open. You're trying to get feedback from many of us, and you said it, and in a very humble way. You don't pretend to know it all. Maybe that's a big message here, that we've got to work together here.
Yeah, I think that's the only way we can move forward. And I say thank you for saying we should be experts, but I don't know if that's the case. So, and I think I was pretty clear about that earlier in the interview, is we don't have the answers, but we're also open to suggestions. We're open to ideas. The ideas, the goal of our program is that this is when we get a player that breaks through, is that everybody's celebrating. When I mean by everybody, again, I'll say the soccer community of Houston. It's not just the Houston Dynamo saying, "Oh, we developed that kid." No, I know when I made it, it wasn't because of one club. It was because of probably 100 different people that I had touch points with that helped me along the way. And, we're hoping that we can all celebrate in that when we finally start having these breakthroughs.
Well, Pat, it's been a long time coming for our community, and I thank you, number one, for being with us today, but also for the leadership, because it takes exactly what you just said to make it happen and to have people believe and trust in you. And I think that's a big change from a few years back, in my opinion. Pat, the last word. World Cup coming up, a lot of activity. The team, first of all, what do you expect of the Dynamo here, your team, as we wrap up the 25 season?
We got a tough schedule coming up. I think we're playing the top 3 teams in the next 4 games. So we got a tough schedule, but there's no excuse for us. We got to push forward and make sure we're a playoff team this year, and hopefully we can peak at the right time and make a little run here. So we're excited about the challenge ahead of us, but the biggest point I think I want to get across is the entire club. We feel like there's some momentum here. And we hope that everyone in the city of Houston can see that, and hopefully they can come out and support us, whether that's on the youth side or whether that's on the professional side. But we're excited about the future of the Houston Dynamo.
A bright future indeed, hopefully as early as this season, playoffs and beyond. Mr. Pat Onstad, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate you having me on.